Hi friends and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, hello. My name's George Agambar and I'm a UK music producer. Today's video is about one of the most important and most commonly discussed topics, tuning vocals. We're going to be having a look at the manual tuning feature in Logic Pro X called Flex Pitch. This is a really great tool and comes free with Logic Pro X. It's one that I use on the majority of my mixes, especially the vocal tracks. But if you don't use Logic Pro X, don't worry and don't turn off. There are other softwares and plugins that you can use, such as Melodyne and Waves Tune, that will do the same job and that you can apply the same principles to. So make sure you stay tuned, hit the subscribe button and notification bell, and look out for new videos every Wednesday.
And things will never be the same when I hear your name since you kissed me in the rain.
Tuning vocals is imperative to achieving a good sounding mix. If your vocals are horribly out of tune, they can be distracting and sound unpleasant to listen to. But at the same time, if your vocals are too perfectly in tune, it can have the same effect. And that's why vocal tuning is so important. We need to pay really close attention to the whole process and approach it sympathetically. And that's why I really love Flex Pitch. Yes, it does take slightly longer than simply putting an auto-tuner plugin on our vocal track. However, it gives us the ability to choose how we tune the vocal, how much we tune the vocal by, and which bits of the vocal we tune. And to me, the results that we can achieve using Flex Pitch is well worth this time investment. So we're going to have a look over how to prepare our track before using Flex Pitch, how to load up Flex Pitch, how to actually use it, and then we'll go through an example and tune a vocal together using Flex Pitch, and have a look at some of the cool additional features that it has to offer. Before we do anything, we need to prepare our tracks. I like to start by listening through to the track and deciding whether it needs tuning. Admittedly, the majority of the time it does. Music nowadays has really tightly tuned vocals. But it's important to bear in mind that sometimes vocals that are slightly out of tune will add a bit more character to your mix. Next, I make sure that the track has been compiled and bounced into one track and is not a stack of multiple takes. And this is because Flex Pitch only works on individual tracks. And finally, this is the most important stage. I cannot stress this enough. Please make a copy of your track before you use Flex Pitch. Sometimes when there's an odd noise in your track, or there's a grunt or a growl or a breath or some overpronounced sibilance, Flex Pitch can create distorted artifacts. These artifacts are something that we can't get rid of in Flex Pitch. By making a copy, you can replace that distorted artifacts that Flex Pitch has created with the original audio, and then your problem's solved. So, once your track has been prepped for tuning, we need to turn on Flex Mode. We click the Track Flex button to enter Flex Mode in Logic and turn it on the individual track that's being tuned using the Flex On-Off button. This tells Logic to activate Flex Mode on the individual track. Using this button, we can also bypass all of the edits we make in Flex Mode. Then we simply need to select Flex Pitch from the drop-down menu. As you can see, there are so many different flex modes which do different things, but we want to alter the pitching, so we choose Flex Pitch. The next thing to do is to open the track editor. We do this by clicking the scissors button at the top of the window. The screen that pops up along the bottom will allow us to see our track and make edits easily. When we open this for the first time, we will see the waveform of our track and not the Flex Pitch screen. To see Flex Pitch, we need to press the Show Hide Flex button. And then we've loaded up Flex Pitch and can begin to think about editing our track. Flex Pitch is pre-fader. It won't affect your plugins as processing happens before all that. When you turn on Flex Pitch, Logic will also disable its destructive editing feature. Destructive editing is when the edited file will overwrite the original file, changing it permanently. Flex Pitch will not make any permanent changes to your original recording. If you want it to, you'll need to bounce your track after using Flex Pitch. Bearing all this in mind, let's have a look at how to actually use flex pitch. When flex pitch is opened in the track editor, the waveform of the track is shown in the background, but there are all of these boxes and lines on top of it. The boxes represent Logic's analysis of the track. It's the individual notes that Logic thinks your track is producing. The lines represent the exact pitching of the track. The piano roll on the left-hand side tells us which note is being played or sung. Each note on the piano roll correlates with a row of the grid. The row that the box sits on tells us which note it's pitched at. Then we have these sliders on the very left of the track editor. The pitch correction allows us to change the pitch of the note so that it's closer to its perfect pitch according to Logic's analysis. See how as I slide the slider, the note moves more towards the centre of the row on the grid. The time quantize will try and snap the timings of the note to the grid. This is really handy and cool that flex pitch allows us to do this. However, using this function will not affect the tuning of your track. There is also the gain slider. This lets us change the gain of the track or individual notes. It's really helpful for volume automation, but again won't affect the tuning of the track. And finally, we have the scale quantize. This will move notes that are not in the selected scale to the closest scale note. This may come in handy if you wanted a really quick tuning fix or if you have a very out of tune track. The key of this example is A minor, and so if I set that as a scale, you should see some of the notes move to the scale notes as I press the quantize button like so. So that's the basics of using flex pitch. We can use the sliders on the left to roughly tune our track very quickly and easily. But now let's have a look at all the fine details and fine edits that we can make on the individual notes. Firstly, to snap the box to the grid notes, you just have to double click on it. And as you can see, it will move to the closest note. Then you can drag the whole box to change the note like so. When a box is hovered over, 6 little dots appear around its border. These little dots allow us to edit the note and all do different things. Starting at the top left corner and the top right corner, we have pitch drift. This controls how the notes slide on and off or from one to the other. The bigger the slide, the less accurate the tuning sounds. With a vocal track, it will always be natural to have small slides on and off notes. Here's the track with really big pitch drifts.
There is a house in New Orleans they call the rising sun.
And here it is with more natural sounding drifts.
There is a house in New Orleans they call the rising sun.
You can hear that the bigger pitch drifts made the track sound sloppier and less in tune. The top middle is the fine tuning. This allows us to make the note ever so slightly sharper or flatter. The fine tuning is measured in cents, which is tiny. For reference, there are 100 cents in one semitone. We change this fine tuning by dragging the dot up or down. So here's the track snapped to Logic's notes.
There is a house in New Orleans they call the rising sun.
And here it is after it's been finely tuned.
There is a house in New Orleans they call the rising sun.
This goes back to what I was saying about not needing to have completely perfect tuning. We can use the fine tuning edit to give our track more character or to make it sound more natural. The bottom left hand corner is a gain control, which again can be useful for volume automation but will not affect the actual tuning of a track, so we don't need to worry about that too much today. The bottom middle allows us to edit the vibrato of a note. This eliminates the shakiness of a note. So if you have less vibrato, your track is more likely to sound strong with more accurate tuning. But make sure that you don't reduce the vibrato too much, as you will get that typical auto-tune sound. Here's the track with its natural vibrato, which is quite a lot.
There is a house in New Orleans they call the rising
And now here's the reduced vibrato.
There is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun.
You can hear that the track sounds a lot more accurate in terms of tuning, but is starting to hint at that auto-tune characteristic. And then finally, the bottom right is a formant shift. This will change where the harmonics of the track lie. It can be helpful if you want to change the tuning of the notes drastically. What this control essentially does is change the tone of a track. When you're tuning in flex pitch, I find it really useful just to solo the track that's being tuned, or to listen to it with a really simple instrument playing the chords of the song in the background, like a simple piano. And this allows us to hear the small details and nuances of the track that's being tuned. I find this a really good practice to get into, but it does rely on having a good sense of pitch and key retention. I would also advise that you tune a single line or a single phrase at a time. Again, this will help with our sense of pitch and key retention because we won't be working on long sections of the song that are going to take us hours and hours. It also gives us small goals. It breaks up what can be a really, really big task. And to me, that makes the whole process a lot more productive and seem a lot more achievable. We then need to decide what notes we want to edit or tune. Again, not every note has to be perfectly in tune. If you're struggling to decide which notes to tune or which need tuning, then it can be useful to have a look at the placement of the boxes and the lines in the track editor. Often the notes that need tuning are the boxes that sit in the middle of two rows and the lines that are really squiggly and look a bit like this. Once you've made all your edits, go back and listen through the whole phrase from start to finish. This is important just to make sure that the edits you've made still sound natural and fit in the mix. There have been some instances where I've finished tuning something and I think, yeah, this is great. And then I go back and listen and I realise that actually some notes are still a bit out of tune, or some stick out of the mix because they've been tuned too harshly, and I've had to go back and fix those problems. Please also make sure that you take ear breaks every 40 to 50 minutes to prevent you from getting ear fatigue. Let's have a listen to this vocal phrase and try to tune it using flex pitch. Here's the original vocal.
They call the rising sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy.
I've already turned on flex pitch and I'm just going to open up the track editor. When I was listening to the vocal, I could hear that the phrase, and it's been the ruin, was particularly sharp. So I'm going to find that part of the track and snap the notes to the grid by double clicking on them. Now I'm going to listen through to that phrase again.
And it's been the ruin.
I can hear that some of the notes aren't actually the right notes. For example, the F sharp I've sung at the beginning should be on a G, so I'm quickly going to fix that by dragging the box to a G. I was also not too happy with the sound of the word been. I think that the beginning of it sounds too sloppy. It has too much of a slide on it. So I'm going to decrease the pitch drift. Now the word sounds like this.
And it's been the ruin.
That's much better, but I still think that the whole phrase isn't accurate enough in terms of pitch. So what I'm going to do is decrease the vibrato of the entire phrase. And as you can see, the lines are becoming less squiggly as I do so. Now let's compare the original track to the tuned track.
And it's been the ruin. And it's been the ruin.
So as you can hear, flex pitch has allowed us to vastly improve the tuning of the track and has made it sound so much better. There are some really cool things that flex pitch can also do, aside from just allowing us to tune our vocal track. One of my favourites is it allows us to create a MIDI track of our recording. And this can be really useful when we want to strengthen a vocal. We can get another instrument to play the melody line at the same time as the vocal, which will make it sound stronger and thicker. So let's have a look at how to do that. All you have to do is in the track editor, go to the edit menu at the top and click Create MIDI track from Flex Pitch Data. And as you can see, a MIDI track is created. You may then have to make some edits to the MIDI track, for example, getting rid of some of the double notes that Logic has created. But all in all, this is a really cool, effective, quick trick. Here's how the MIDI track sounds. Again, that's just one of the really cool things that Flex Pitch does. The program is mainly based and focused on tuning tracks, but it does have some cool additional features like that. I hope that this video has given you an idea of all the amazing results you can achieve by choosing to tune your vocals manually. It's definitely a technique that I would advise you practice, as over time you'll become a lot better and a lot quicker at it, I promise. Paying that extra little bit of attention and spending that extra little bit of time on your vocals will really make them sound so much better and make you stand out from other vocal engineers. So whatever software you decide to use, whether that be Flex Pitch or Melodyne or Waves Tune or another, just make sure that you listen carefully to your vocals and tune sympathetically. Don't always aim just for perfect pitch. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you found it useful and helpful. Let me know what you thought in the comments below and if there are any other videos you'd like to see. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell for new videos every Wednesday, and I will see you again soon.